Welcome to the PGA Tour SHOTLink laser training. Before we begin, we would like to thank you for your help. Without you and your hard work, there is no way the PGA Tour SHOTLink staff could do what we do. And for that, we thank you greatly and hope you have a wonderful time. Before we discuss how to operate the laser, let's talk about what to bring with you, how to check in with base, and the voice radio. First, what to bring. You may bring several things with you to the course to help make your day more enjoyable. If the tournament does not provide chairs at each location, you can bring folding chairs so you can rest in between groups. You may also bring binoculars, water, drinks, snacks, sunscreen, and an umbrella if needed. When you arrive at your location, you will find a voice radio, clipboard with a grid map and coordinate log, a pencil, and a plastic bag to cover the equipment in case of poor weather. Once you have your radio, you can check in with SHOTLink. When you check in, you will want to give them your name and laser location. For example, if you were working one fairway, you would say, "This is Dave at one fairway checking in." At this point, you will also need to circle the hole number and location on your coordinate log. Moving on to the voice radio. The voice radio is the most important device used to communicate with SHOTLink. The voice radio is our only backup if the equipment is not working properly. It is also used for questions from SHOTLink, questions to SHOTLink, rulings, medical emergencies, and communication with other laser operators. When using the radio, it is always important to know the following tips. If you do not believe your radio is working properly, check to make sure it's on the correct channel and the volume is adjusted to your liking. To talk, you just press and hold the big button on the side, the one with the arrow pointing toward it, and then you release when you are finished speaking. If you ever see a solid red light on your radio, this means the mic is keyed. When your mic is keyed, everyone on your channel can hear what you are saying, even though you are not pressing the button. Another problem with a keyed mic is that if someone tries to call you and alert you of this problem, you cannot hear them call. Therefore, if you ever see a solid red light, please turn your radio off and back on again. Continuing with voice radio tips. Please be courteous. Only one person talk at a time. There will be 2 radio channels for laser operators. The front side will be on one channel and the back side on a different channel. Also, the following piece of information is very important. The person doing the gridding must wear the radio. The radio can cause interference with the rangefinder, so the person operating the rangefinder cannot wear the radio. You might be thinking to yourself, why do we do this? Where is the information going? With your help, SHOTLink provides an accurate stroke trail for every shot for every player in real time. And the data goes directly to the LED scoreboards, television, the media center, hospitality suites, and PGATour.com. Now that we have discussed the initial process, let's talk about the Fairway laser. The Fairway laser is a movable obstruction, and if the laser is moved, it does not have to be recalibrated. Just make sure you put the pole back in the same spot before you start shooting again. However, do not move the laser unless asked to do so by a player or caddy. There are basically 4 steps to operating a Fairway laser: identifying the player, shooting the laser, entering grid coordinates, and writing down grid coordinates. Now, let's talk about each one. The first step is identifying the player. You can do this several different ways. Number 1 is the order. If you look at the screen underneath the column that says order, a number is next to each player's name, indicating who will be hitting first, second, or third. Right now, we have a 1 next to Rocco's name. This means that he should be teeing off first. Second is the golf ball icon. Whenever a player hits a shot, the walking score enters a stroke. When this happens, a golf ball icon will appear next to the player's name who just hit. Third, clothing colors. If you look below Rocco's name, you see a clothing description. Entering clothing is also the responsibility of the walking score. The walking score can give 2 out of 3 descriptions: shirt color, pant color, and hat color. Right now we have Rocco wearing a green shirt and black pants. Next we can either look at the player's name on the golf bag or the player's name on the back of the caddy bib. And the last thing to help us identify the players are the caddy bib colors. The majority of the tournaments will usually post in the pairings guide what color of bib each caddy is wearing. Therefore, be sure to pick up a pairings guide before you go to your location. Once you have identified whose ball you are about to shoot, select the player's name on the GRS1 and select Laser Entry. This is your Laser Entry fairway screen. On this screen, you have the player's name, ball number, clothing description, and distance from laser, from tee, and to the pin. After you identify your player, it's now time to actually take a shot. As you can see, the rangefinder is a little bit too tall for me. When you get here, you can adjust it to your liking. Right now, you just turn the dial. I'm going to lower it, then you simply tighten the dial. Whenever you look through the rangefinder, you're going to see three things. First thing you'll see in the bottom left is SD. The next thing you'll see in the very middle is a square with crosshairs going through it. At the top right, you're going to see numbers, and that's the distance from the laser to the ball in meters. To take a shot, all you have to do is simply put the square on the ball. Once the square is on the ball, you're going to hold down the fire button. Once you tap on the fire button, distance will appear in the top right. To take the shot, simply just let go. Once you take your shot, information will appear on your screen about 10 seconds later. You always want to make sure the information is correct before you press enter and send the information back to base. If you do not agree with your information, you always have the option to reshoot. All you have to do is tap on reshoot. It is going to say, replace current measurement, are you sure? And you just tap on yes. After you tap on yes, the values zero back out, you take one more shot, information will then again appear on your screen, and if you agree with it and like it, go ahead and press enter. If for any reason you still think it might be a little fishy, go ahead and call base. Once you tap enter, your screen will return to the original home screen, but notice the differences. You now have a check mark with the letter L, and this means you have taken a laser shot for that player. Also notice the ball number for Rocco has changed to 1. As I mentioned before, you will also map your coordinates, and this is your map. If you look closely, you're going to have information that tells you each square is 5 yards. You will also have a red dot indicating where your laser location is. When you get here in the morning, you always want to walk around and get comfortable with your surroundings. As you can see, you have sprinkler heads that tell you distance, and you have bunkers, cart path, water, and so on. Once you determine your grid coordinate, you will then enter it on your coordinate log. This coordinate log here has already been used today. If you take a look, we have what round we're in. This is final round. You also have if you're greenside, fairway, fairway short, fairway long, and your hole number. To the left, you have your group numbers, your players, and this volunteer actually took the time to write down the clothing description next to each player's name. We have determined that Rocco's ball came to rest at N50. Therefore, we wrote N50 next to his name. You might wonder why we have extra columns right here. If for any reason you have more than one shot in your location, you would simply write another coordinate under coordinate 2. At this point, it's time to enter our grid coordinate into the GRS1. To do this, you will once again tap on the player's name, but this time you will select grid entry. Once you select grid entry, we have Rocco's name, ball 1, and enter letters and numbers. After you have determined the grid coordinates, tap on enter letters, and a letter pad will show up. Let's say we have determined our grid to be N as in Nancy, 50. Therefore, we will tap on the letter N and press enter. Next, tap on enter numbers, and a number pad will appear. Tap on 50 and press enter. Once you have entered the letter and the number, confirm you entered the correct coordinates and press enter. When we return to our home screen after entering the grid, we now have an L, a G, and a number next to each player's name. As I mentioned before, the L stands for laser and the G now stands for grid. The distance shown is the difference between the laser shot and the coordinate. You always want this number to be as close as possible. If the distance is greater than 40 feet, take another laser shot. If the difference still does not improve after you take another laser shot, check your grid and also check to make sure your grid was entered correctly. If the distance between the laser and the grid does not improve, please call base and let them know of the problem. Once we have taken a shot for all 3 players, as well as entered grid coordinates, we can now advance to the next group. To go to the next group, tap on the arrow to the right of group, or tap on group to enter the number of a specific group. Always make sure you are shooting the correct group. So let's recap. When a player hits a shot, we are going to identify the player, shoot the laser, enter grid coordinates, and write down grid coordinates. If you have worked a fairway location in the past, there are a couple differences between the Laser Atlanta and the rangefinder. First off, if you are using the rangefinder, you will not be able to wear a watch. The watch could cause interference with the rangefinder. Second, I mentioned before that SD should always appear in the bottom left. If for any reason when you're looking through your rangefinder, SD does not appear, you can use these 2 arrows right here to scroll through to different modes. You would simply arrow down until you got back to SD mode. Another difference with the new device is you do not have to worry about recalibrating your laser. If a ball lands near your laser, all you will have to do is pick up the pole, move it, and then put it back, and you're ready to shoot.
Now we are ready to talk about the greenside lasers. They're located on 6-foot-high platforms around the green. The greenside operators are responsible to shoot all approach shots into the green, all shots around the green, and all putts until the ball is in the hole. The greenside laser will never have to be moved. It is also more precise than the fairway laser, so if a ball is between the fairway laser and greenside, we ask that either both shoot it if possible or just the greenside. We do understand it is a bit more difficult to locate the ball in the greenside's laser scope, especially on far shots. The greenside laser process will be the same for every shot, for every player, the whole day. First, we need to identify the player. Second, we will select the correct player in the handheld by tapping on their name. You will then shoot the laser. Once you have verified the information is correct, you will press enter and send the data to ShotLink. Lastly, you will write down the grid coordinate on the coordinate log. Now let's talk about each step more in detail. First, on how to identify a player. There are 4 ways of doing this. 1, if your device is in communication with base, you will get a golf ball icon appear to the right of the player's name once he has hit his shot. 2, you can look under each player and look at the clothes listed. The walking scorer is responsible for inputting the clothing. They have 2 of 3 options to choose from, and you will see either a S, P, or H on your handheld. The S stands for shirt color, P for pant color, and H for hat color. Third, you can look at the player's bag for their name or the back of the caddy bib for the name. The last way to identify a player is by the caddy's bib color. The majority of tournaments list this in the pairings guide. It shows what color bib each player's caddy will have. Be sure to pick up a pairings guide before heading to your laser location. Once you have identified whose ball you're about to shoot, select the player's name on the handheld. It will then take you to the next screen. If you see the correct player's name and all zeros listed, you are ready to shoot. Now that I've identified the player's golf ball, I'm ready to shoot the laser. First thing I do is line up the scope. The easiest way is to look above it at the black part, get that just below the golf ball. Then I'll look through the eyepiece and use the dials to the side to fine tune it. The top one moving it up and down, and the bottom one moving it left and right. If you look through the eyepiece and it's blurry, you can adjust that manually with the bigger dial away from your eye. If the crosshairs are blurry or too faint to identify them, you can adjust that also. That's with the smaller eyepiece closest to your eye, moving that right or left. Now that I have the crosshairs directly beneath the ball where it meets the ground, I'm ready to shoot. All you do is tap the REG button and after a few seconds, you'll see data populate onto the handheld. Once you have shot the laser, verify the distance is correct. We have Rocco registered at 3 feet 4 inches. If I thought this distance was wrong, I would simply just tap reshoot on the screen and then take another laser shot. If the distance appears to be correct, just tap enter on the screen and your data will be sent directly to ShotLink. You will see your handheld return automatically to the player screen at this time. Once you're back on the screen with your 3 players listed, look for a few things. You should have a check mark next to the player's name, which means you have successfully sent a laser shot to base. You will also notice the ball number has changed. Please remember you are not keeping score in the greenside tower. That number simply reflects how many laser shots you have taken for each player. When players are on the green, you can use the bow tie function to bring the laser back to the hole. In some cases, you won't be able to see the golf ball. At that time, you'll wait for the player to arrive to his ball and shoot the player's body when he's over it. When one volunteer is operating the laser, the other needs to be recording the grid coordinates. Every shot taken needs to have a grid coordinate associated with it. The grid coordinates are very important because it is the only way to know where the ball was if something happens to your laser, handheld, or there's a problem with the Wi-Fi network. These are examples of what your maps will look like when you get to your greenside tower. There are 2 sides to every map. The zoomed out side are 5-yard squares with your tower location reflected by a red dot. The zoomed in side are 1-yard squares with the hole location reflected by the red dot. Please remember, if a ball is within 3 feet of the hole, you should write down the grid coordinate that is the same as the red dot. This slide shows an example of a coordinate log. Every shot has an associated grid coordinate until the ball is in the hole. You can either write hole or H for the in the hole coordinate. Let's recap now. The order of the greenside process should be identify the player first, select the player on the handheld, shoot the laser, verify the information is correct and press enter, and lastly, write down the grid coordinate. This same process should be used for every single shot on or around the green for every player until the ball is in the hole. You will get in a rhythm after your first group. When each player is in the hole, do not shoot the hole, just tap the in the hole button. You will notice an F appear to the right of the player's name once you have done this. This just means you have finished shooting this player completely. Make sure you have an F next to all players before advancing to the next group. To advance to the next group, just tap the right arrow. You will see your group number change at the top of your handheld. If you get out of order somehow, you can also tap the button that says group and manually type in the group number you need. If there ever is a time you missed a laser shot or unable to shoot the player's ball or body, you can manually enter the grid coordinates into the handheld. To do this, just tap the player's name. Once you get to the next screen, you will see the map button in the middle. Tap on map. You will see your enter number and enter letters screen come up. Use the numbers and letters on the screen. Once you have pressed enter, the screen will jump automatically back to the home screen with the 3 players listed. You will not see a distance displayed on either screen, so make sure you are careful when you enter grid coordinates into the handheld. In review, there's 4 steps to do for each shot. Identify the player's golf ball, shoot the laser, verify the information and send it to ShotLink, and finally, map the grid coordinate. Now that we know how to operate the laser, let's answer some questions you might have in regard to what you should be shooting, hazards, out of bounds, and etc. Every time the ball comes to rest, there needs to be a laser shot taken. This includes all drops, whether it is a free or penalty drop. If there is ever a ball in between the 2 laser locations, use your radio to communicate to one another. If you are unable to reach them with the radio, never assume the other location is taking the shot. We would rather have duplicate laser shots than have nothing at all. If there's a situation where you cannot see the golf ball, you have 3 options. First, communicate with the other laser location on your hole to see if they can see it. Second, you can wait until the player addresses the ball and shoot his body. Third, enter grid coordinate into the handheld. Never, ever ask a marshal to stand over the ball so you can shoot him. If a player hits a ball in the water, you need to remember the laser cannot shoot the water. You will need to enter grid coordinate into the handheld for where the ball went in the water. Then you will shoot his drop and write down a grid for his drop as well. If the ball goes out of bounds or lost somewhere, try and take a laser shot for where it ended up. If you are unable to do this, enter a grid coordinate into the handheld and then you will need to shoot and grid his drop. There are some cases where the player taps in or marks his ball before you are able to shoot it. If the mark is down, shoot the mark. If the player is already tapped in, shoot the ground where you think the ball was. To help with shots around the hole, you can use the bow tie function to return the laser to the hole. Most second shots will end up within 3 feet of the hole. You can use the dials to move the laser slightly to catch the tap-ins easier. There will be times when ShotLink base calls you for grid coordinates. Please associate a word with the letter when calling it to base. A lot of letters sound alike over the radio and make it very difficult to make out what letter you are actually saying. For example, for R23, you could say Roger 23. If there are any weather delays or rain, please cover your equipment with the plastic bag. If you are evacuated from the course, keep your radio with you and on so base can communicate any updates or restart times to you. Once you have shot the last group of the day, please check out with base before leaving. Sometimes we have a last-minute question for you. After you have checked out, leave all equipment at the laser location, including the voice radio. Go to shotlink.com to review training material, watch videos, take quizzes, and participate in the survey. Once again, thank you so much for being a ShotLink volunteer and have fun.